Mellow greetings, everybody. My name is James. I am from the internet. Today we are going to be talking about the further decriminalization of cannabis. Now, currently, cannabis across the United States of America is either legal or decriminalized to some extent in more than half of the states in the country. However, it is still firmly embedded as a federal drug violation. But as more and more states continue to add onto the pile, it is placing continued pressure on the federal government, specifically the executive branch, to either reschedule or ultimately support legislation to completely decriminalize cannabis as a drug. Now, until that happens, we are forced to continuously look to individual states for leadership into the category and what it's going to look like when the federal government finally takes the lead by listening to its constituents, i.e., all of the states that continue to legalize and decriminalize cannabis. So let's take a look at more progress in this because, of course, I'm James. I'm the good news guy, not the bad news guy. Here we go! New Jersey has dismissed 88,000 weed cases under new marijuana law. Now, before I continue, I do want to have a quick discussion about the word marijuana and the fact that I am using it in this article. Now, many people point to the historical context of the word marijuana being a, quote, Spanish-Mexican word that first popped up sometime around the late 1800s, at least to the ears of white Americans. And after the 1930s and 40s, many people in the American government pushed very hard to make sure the word marijuana was constantly used when describing the plant, the herb, the people who used it, and eventual legislation to curtail and then criminalize it. The idea being that marijuana had a very ethnic sound to it, and so that the more people heard it, the more people would think, oh, those dirty Mexicans and their dirty drug. Please keep in mind, white people across the country used to call it jazz cabbage or the devil's lettuce, implying that it was brought about to white people as a scourge by black people or non-Christians. So, the continued use of the word marijuana in historical context in the United States is unsurprising. So note, going forward, I will be referring to it in the rest of this video as cannabis unless it is specifically listed in the title of something. Now I will continue. New Jersey has vacated or dismissed tens of thousands of cannabis convictions as the state continues to work out the details of its new legal cannabis market. The state judiciary has dealt with 88,000 cases so far. These are the first wave of an estimated 360,000 cases identified that qualify for expungement. Cases that have been vacated or dismissed still need to be expunged. That's the step that ultimately clears a person's record. That phase will come in the next few months, according to the judiciary. Now, while there are 26 states plus DC that have some level of decriminalization or legalization of cannabis, there are currently only 5 states that are working on actively expunging the records of people who have previously been prosecuted for small amounts of possession of cannabis. New Jersey recently joined the pile, and they are apparently hard at work on leveling the playing field as quickly as they can. A state Supreme Court order issued earlier this month laid out a process for vacating, expunging, and dismissing certain cannabis offenses from people's records. These include selling less than 1 ounce of cannabis and possession of less than 1 ounce of cannabis, as well as related crimes, like possessing drug paraphernalia or being under the influence of cannabis. These orders fulfill the promise of the cannabis decriminalization law. In February, Governor Phil Murphy legalized weed by signing a package of bills. One set up the framework for legal 21 and older cannabis sales, and the other ended all arrests and fines for possessing cannabis. Again, while this seems like small baby steps, and I know radicals really don't like reform and the slow speed that it moves at, and trust me, I feel y'all, this is still progress. Every single state that has a public referendum where the people speak and loudly say they want cannabis legalized or decriminalized, it places more pressure on the federal government. And actions like this, where states are literally going back and expunging all charges and convictions for possessing it, this is huge because this puts pressure on the judicial branch as well as the executive and the legislature. After vacating convictions or dismissing cases, the judiciary will automatically expunge those cases in the coming months. The judiciary is creating an electronic system that will allow people with records to obtain certificates showing their crimes have been expunged, according to a press release. New Jersey has historically had a burdensome expungement system. Several reforms have already eliminated filing fees and moved the process online. Eventually, the entire system will be fully automated. Now, this is even bigger than the part before it, because often states will pay lip service to the sort of thing that helps the average working class American, i.e., any number of people who at some point in their life picked up a minor conviction or drug offense and now are barred from voting. It is difficult for them to get jobs, secure mortgages, lines of credit. This legislation, and more importantly, this kind of proactive movement towards completely erasing history of these charges, this immediately improves the material conditions of members of the working class who have been caught up in the drug war, regardless of how many decades ago it might have happened to them. Now, it is often said or spoken about or portrayed in television shows and movies how a conviction for possessing drugs can literally ruin somebody's life. But that terminology and the trope have been used so often that it's been somewhat devalued. And most people don't really fully understand or grasp just how screwed somebody is if they get a single conviction hung on them even early in life. And yes, while the states are being motivated by greed, i.e., they have determined that there is more money to be made through a state tax on cannabis versus all the prosecution and jailing of people for possessing cannabis, it's still going to benefit everybody else who lives in those communities. So please, if you're listening to this, yeah, it's a small clap, but it's still a clap. We have to continue moving things in the right direction. And these small victories need to be pointed out. They need to be shown under a bright light to other people and places who haven't come around yet. This is how you change public perception and public opinion, i.e., the electorate. And if enough of the electorate clamors for something, well then, politicians eventually relent or they lose their positions of power and get voted out. So, keep celebrating the wins, keep pushing against the machine, and I will be back again, hopefully, with more good news like this, sooner rather than later. Until next time, my name is James, I am from the internet, and I am out. Peace.